which I've now done. So welcome everyone to our weekly call. As you hopefully will have seen from my email from earlier, be more of a sort of conversational call this week, before we sort of pick up again with the sort of normal structure next week, given it's Labor Day in the US today, and also it's a public holiday in Canada as well. So a number of our attendees aren't on the call, although I can see the US is indeed represented with John, if no one else.
Switzerland, what are you talking about?
Well, I suppose it's early yet, so you have the rest of the day to enjoy anyway. But of course, being on Swiss time, I guess you'll be working more to Swiss public holidays, if anything, than US, presumably.
That is correct.
Right. Well, I had a few things which I thought I might mention to kick the conversation off, and then I'll sort of open up to see if there's anything that anyone else wants to cover off. First thing I was going to mention, I saw a blog post on AppNec from a few days back, and I'll post a link in case you've not had a chance to see it yet into the chat. And it talked about some research into the use of machine learning to boost, to quote the title, internet and DNS security. So I have already been in touch with the author to see if he'd be interested in joining us on one of our weekly calls in the next few weeks. So if he does indeed want to, I'll let you know when that's scheduled. But it was an interesting read, so not terribly long, as it's a blog post rather than a sort of academic article, so worth a look. If you've not had a chance to read it yet, just take a few minutes of your time. And as I go through these, if anyone has looked at any of them and has any comments, feel free to jump in and interrupt me.
Actually, I was trying to read that today, and the APNIC blog was down. Can you summarize the article at all?
Oh, okay. It was working, but answering a different question to the one you asked. And it was working certainly half an hour ago, because I was on the site for other reasons. I
got a Cloudflare error.
Oh.
I'll try again.
Okay. If not, let me know, and I'll ping you the article itself. Be easy enough to do that, Peter, if that's useful.
Thanks.
I'll just grab the text from the site.
Oh yeah, it is working now. Sorry. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Just obviously a temporary glitch then. I'll come back to AppNec in a moment. In the meantime, the sort of second paper I wanted to just mention in passing, and this is definitely not one I'll try and summarize because it's a much lengthier paper in the academic style. Etsy has just published a report on encrypted traffic integration, very much trying to look at the sort of the implications for encryption for networks. And that's not a very good summary of what the paper's about. But I haven't managed to work out who the actual authors of the paper are from within Etsy. But from an admittedly quick read over the weekend, it looked interesting, and I think will warrant sort of more time spent looking at it. And again, if I can actually sort of work out who the actual authors are, again, I'll see if they'd be interested in presenting on this call, as it's clearly relevant given the subject matter. And just as an aside, as I know, as Simon's on the call, I know Simon has some knowledge of some of the activity in Etsy. It's a big organization. Is this one that you've had any sort of oversight of, Simon, or is it in a different group to the one that you're connected with within Etsy?
Just unmuting myself there. Yeah, I'm vice chair of the board, as yes, as you correctly note from Andrew, I don't have knowledge that goes on. I'll take a look at the article. I can probably work out where the authorship lies from the information on the front, but I'll hopefully come back to during the meeting.
Okay, if you want mind, that'd be really helpful. Yeah, it referred to one of the groups within Etsy, but I couldn't spot, at least not immediately, the individual authors' details, rather than they appear to be written by the Secretariat, but that may be incorrect. Not being overly familiar with the normal structure.
Yeah. It's a group report, so it should be written by the group. It will have been published Secretariat, because of course Etsy centrally publishes everything, but it will have been written by cooperative work in the group, and I should be able to look inside the group stuff and see who actually did it.
Okay, brilliant. Right, thank you. But as I say, from an initial read, it looked quite interesting. So again, it will be worth your collective while having a look at that if the subject matter appeals. And then the third paper I was going to mention, which was much lighter content. I saw a press release last week from a company I'd not previously come across before, but that's probably more reflection on me than them, called Secure 64. Again, I'll put a link in the chat, who announced the launch of a encrypted DNS proxy for ISPs. So again, I've reached out to their CTO to find out a bit more about that beyond the details in the press release. He hasn't come back to me yet, but to be fair, as I mentioned earlier, it's Labor Day today in the US. So I wasn't really expecting a response until maybe later this week at the earliest. But for those of you in ISPs that have yet to launch your own encrypted DNS services, that might be something that's worth a look above and beyond your other options. Coming back to AppNIC for a moment and changing the subject, it's AppNIC 52 next week, so the next in their series of conferences. Obviously, it's in Asia Pac time, so some of the timing of some of the sessions might be a little challenging, certainly for those of us in Europe. But I did note some sessions that look like quite a lot of interest. For example, there's a series of tech keynotes on next Tuesday, the 14th. One of which is threat hunting using DNS. And then on Wednesday, the 15th, there's a session, tech session 3, focused on oblivious DNS and also DNSSEC key life cycles. There's obviously a whole bunch of other sessions, but sort of the tech keynotes, the threat hunting using DNS on the oblivious DNS and DNSSEC key life cycles looked of particular interest. So those of you that have the inclination, if you're in Europe or perhaps more readily in the US, time zone might be a little bit more friendly, as it'll be late in the evening rather than the early hours of the morning. If you've not looked at it already, it might be worth a quick look at the APNIC 52 schedule for next week. It's free to attend. It's just a case of registering in advance, and attendance is via Zoom. So worth a look if you've not already done so. And again, if I just copy the relevant link, there's a link to the overall URL for the session in the chat, if you want to take a look at that and see if there are other sessions that may be of interest to you. I'll talk about our call next week in a moment, but let me stop talking just for a second and see what else has maybe caught people's eyes over the last couple of weeks or so since we last had a call. Are there any other topics that people have noted that they might be of interest? I see Simon and John are both raised hands. I didn't see who did it first, so we'll go to John first and then Simon.
Thanks. So a little bit of a self-serving note here. Quad 9 did file our objection to the Sony injunction in Germany about DNS blocking. You can take a look at our blog page to read a little bit about what the points are in our objection. We think that it's a relatively important ruling especially to people in Germany or to organizations in Germany, but also to anyone doing business in Europe because of the Lugano Convention, which is the whole reason that our Swiss organization was able to be have that law applied to it. So we are additionally to just the news and the content of our objection, we've got an appeal for letters of support in that document, and so we are looking for organizations who are of a like mindset, that they believe that recursive resolution should not be essentially hijacked for other purposes. And so we've got in that blog post, we've got a link to a letter of support comments section if you'd be so interested in doing so. But it is definitely worth, I think, reading the objection itself. There are a whole lot of points in there, some of which were generated by the GFF, which is a German civil rights organization, very similar to, for those of you familiar with those kind of organizations like the EFF in the United States. The EFF also has weighed in with some comments of support. And so we think for a lot of people in this call, it's probably an interesting thing as far as what the implications are if that ruling is allowed to stand or it falls. And we'd suggest you at least understand the issues of it because it probably does affect your business at some point.
Mm. And definitely, I think any resolver operators really ought to take a look at that if you've not already done so. Very definitely worthwhile getting up to date, as you say, John. It does have implications for others. It's definitely not a narrow case in that sense. Out of interest, are Echo, the sort of German-based, but although they're not technically a German industry association, but they are based in Germany. Have you reached out to Echo at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they're actually one of our supporters in kind as well as in resources. So they are part of the our thanks to comments section, and they've been great in helping us come up with some ideas and I think hopefully transmitting that to their constituents as well. Excellent,
good. Yeah, and you'll see, say, I've posted in the chat a link to the most recent Quad 9 blog post. If anyone's not up to date with that, definitely worth a read. Okay, thanks, John. Simon, I think you also raised your hand via the chat.
Yeah, yes. I keep on forgetting where the reaction is in from Zoom. So I wrote the chat instead. Sorry. Yeah, just to come back on the thing earlier. The work is led by a British consultant called Scott Cadzer, who you may know. If not, I can make you an introduction if you wish.
Please.
The group chaired by Tony Rutowski, who some people on the call might know because he's been a long time. Who is a from US consultant, now semi-retired, and he will almost certainly have had an input to the report. He knows Tony. He quite a good talk, shall we say, deprecating of him, and so from Scott is the person who has led this particular work. So I'll make you an intro and take it from there.
Fantastic, thanks, Simon. That's really helpful, and I'll reach out to Scott offline in that case. Okay, so that was that. So anyone else, you can either use the Zoom tool to raise your hand, put something in the chat, or indeed just come off mute if you wish to. So anything else on people's minds at the moment? Maybe whilst you're thinking, I'll just mention that I have been in touch with a number of groups, just sharing the report which I covered on this call a few weeks back, looking at the implications of ECH with particular focus on the education and finance sectors, which seems to be garnering some interest at the moment, including in the non-technical press. So you may see more of that in the coming days. Just by the by, I'll obviously post a link to that as and when that's the case, but certainly there seems to have got some attention, in particular in the education sector, where there's quite a few establishments that appears to have been blindsided by the standards development, who are now paying a bit more attention, which was obviously the point of writing the report. Okay, anything that anyone else wishes to bring up at the moment? Very quiet this week. I'm sure John will be in touch with you, Kurt, just looking at a post in the chat to take you up on your offer. Okay, well, the other thing I mentioned then that we're going to pick up on next week, just for your information, is we're going to focus the call on content filtering, which I know will be of interest to at least some of you, and in particular, the discussion is going to really discuss whether there's the case for an open standard to aid in the performance of content filtering. So we'll kick off that discussion with a presentation, then, and no doubt followed by a discussion. So those of you that do have content filtering either as your main business or it's something that's of interest to your business operations, it would definitely be worth being involved in that discussion, which may in due course lead to a proposal to, well, whether it's the IETF or other standards body remains to be seen, but to really try and pick up and see whether there's a way of enabling content filtering in a recognised standards compliant manner, right, to try and address some of the problems, operational problems caused by things like DOE and ECH, and indeed private relay and no doubt other standards, oblivious DNS, etc. in due course. So that's what we're going to sort of mainly look at next week, and no doubt over the coming few weeks as well, I suspect, to really explore that, potentially with a view to submitting a paper if it is decided that IETF is the right forum for it, maybe submitting a paper for discussion in the sort of general dispatch group at IETF 112. And who knows, without getting ahead of ourselves, maybe with a view to pushing for a BOF in ITF 113 in the new year. So that's the current thinking, but obviously more on that on the call next week. Right. I think that was pretty much everything I had to cover, other than, since I mentioned the ITF at the moment, I noticed that our chairs have put in a request for an ADD session during ITF 112 in November. So obviously early days, so to worry at this stage what the agenda might be, but certainly that's I think a 2-hour slot has been requested for that. Not seen too many slot requests in other working groups yet, or on other mailing lists, but no doubt that will come over the next few weeks, as it's still a while off before ITF 112. Okay, that definitely was everything I had just to raise. Does anyone else have anything else that's occurred to you that you think would be useful bringing up whilst we're talking? A second to think. If not, should we sort of call it quits there then? As a short call this week, but have a great week, everyone. And if you can do it next week, it should be an interesting discussion about content filtering. So have a great week and see you then. Thanks all.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
Thank you.